StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई affordable.
Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ's initiative, the podcast. We are going to understand parliamentary privileges. Sir, can you explain us what are parliamentary privileges?
Before we start, I want to tell you something, that this is not an advertisement. However, it is a global vision of StudyIQ to provide most affordable and effective education. In our Prelims to Interview program, that is P2I program, you will be accompanied by the best faculties of the field, and you will also receive the one-to-one mentorship in this program. Moreover, you will receive prelims as well as mains test series according to UPSC syllabus. So, for huge discount, you can use my code AVLIVE. All the links are pinned in the comment section.
Parliamentary privileges are the special rights, immunities, and exemptions enjoyed by the two houses of parliament and their committees and their members too. Parliamentary privileges are necessary in order to secure the independence and the effectiveness of their members and their actions. Parliamentary privileges do not extend to the President, who is also an integral part of Parliament. However, President is not a member of any of the House. In the absence of privileges, the House can neither maintain their authority, dignity, and honor, nor can protect their members from any obstructions in the discharge of their parliamentary responsibilities. The Constitution has also extended the parliamentary privileges to those persons who are entitled to speak and take part in the proceedings of House of Parliament or any of its committees. These include the Attorney General of India and Union Ministers.
Sir, can you throw some light on sources of parliamentary privileges?
Originally, the Constitution in Article 105 expresses and mentions the privileges in two terms. Number 1, freedom of speech in Parliament. Number 2, right of publication of its proceedings. With respect to other privileges, it provided that they are to be the same as those of the British House of Commons, its committees, and its members on the day of its commencement, until which is defined by the Parliament. The 44th Amendment was made only verbal changes by dropping a direct reference to the British House of Commons without making any change in the implications of the provisions. Till now, Parliament has not made any special law to exhaustively codify all the privileges. However, there are few important sources of privileges which we can understand. The sources can be constitutional provisions, various laws made by Parliament, rules of both the houses, parliamentary conventions, and also judicial interpretations. These all can be the sources of parliamentary privileges.
Sir, can you elucidate some individual privileges which are enjoyed by members of Parliament?
Individual privileges cannot be arrested during the session of Parliament and 40 days before the beginning and 40 days after the end of a session. They have freedom of speech, and no member is liable to any proceedings in any court for anything said on any vote given by him in the Parliament or its committees. This freedom is subject to the provisions of Constitution and to the rules and standing orders regulating the procedure of Parliament. They are exempted from jury services also. They can refuse to give evidence, and they can also refuse to appear as a witness in front of the court during the parliamentary session is going on.
Sir, what are collective privileges?
Collective privileges has the right to publish its reports, debates, and proceedings, and also the right to prohibit others from publishing the same. The 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978 told the freedom of the press to publish true reports of parliamentary proceedings without prior permission of the House. Case of a secret sitting of House is an exemption to this clause. Collective privileges can exclude strangers from its proceedings and hold secret sittings to discuss some important matters. And it can make rules to regulate its own procedure and the conduct of its business and to adjudicate upon such matters. It can punish members as well as outsiders for breach of its privileges or its contempt by suspension or expulsion in case of members. It has the right to receive immediate information on the arrest, detention, conviction, imprisonment, and release of a member. It can institute inquiries and order the attendance of witness and send for the relevant papers and record. The courts are prohibited to inquire into the proceedings of a house or its committees. No person can be arrested and no legal process can be served within the premise of the house without the permission of the presiding officer.
Sir, when we study parliamentary privileges, there are two important terms. One is breach of privileges and the other is contempt of the house. So can you explain us some differences between these two terms?
We will try to understand the difference between the both individually. First, I will deal with breach of privileges. Breach of privileges is when any individual or any authority disregard or attacks any of the privileges, rights and immunities either of the member individually or of the house collectively. This is punishable by the house. It is known as breach of privileges. And second, contempt of the house. Any act or omission which obstructs a house of parliament and its members or its officer in the performance of their functions or which has a tendency directly or indirectly to produce result against the dignity, authority and honor of the house, then it will be considered as a contempt of the house.
Sir, parliamentary privileges are verbally dealt with. So, there is a question that should these privileges be codified or not? And we see conflicting opinions also. So, what is your view on this?
Arguments in favor for the codification are point-wise we will see. Number one, unless they are codified, they remain vague and subject to different interpretations. That is why it is important to codify the privileges. Number second, that codification would prevent conflict between the judiciary and legislature, which we see in very often. Number third point is that the codification will also result in adherence and observance of privileges. However, there are arguments which are against of the codification. The first argument is that the codification would bring them within the ambit of Article 13 subsection 2, which will give an judiciary to intervene in the proceedings of parliament, which will against the separation of power. The second point which argue against the codification says that bill speaking to codify privileges would reflect the perspective of the ruling party only, which ideally should be conceived independently, and this will not happen. The third point, which says that no codification should happen, and their argument is that what constitutes breach of privileges or contempt cannot be delineated. Codification would impair the authority of the presiding officer to widen the privileges by liberal interpretation. This may erode prestige and the sovereignty of parliament. However, judiciary at this juncture needs to reconcile privileges with Part 3 fundamental rights. By and large, privileges are not violated and abused.
Sir, now we are curious to understand that when there is a breach of privilege, is there a committee to investigate those charges?
Standing committee constitute in each house of the parliament or state legislature, which consist of 15 members in Lok Sabha and 10 members from the Rajya Sabha, which will be nominated by the Speaker in the case of Lok Sabha and by the Chairman in case of Rajya Sabha. And its functioning is to investigate the cases of breach of privileges and which will then take an appropriate action to the Speaker or the Chairman of the respective houses.
Sir, thank you for giving us the information. Dear listeners, it is time to wrap up this episode of the podcast. In the next episode, we will start our discussion from another topic, so stay connected with StudyIQ and keep studying. You can listen to StudyIQ Presents the podcast on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, etc. Links are pinned in the comment section below. Thank you.